Good morning, dear students. After studying the anatomy part of the lecture, we will today study the mechanism of hearing. And if we want to understand hearing, then we should know what is hearing. So, hearing is detection of sound waves. So, the mechanism by which you detect sound wave is called as hearing. So it is very important. So all of the human beings and other creatures of this world, whosoever can have this special sense of hearing, and through hearing we can socialize, as this special sense allows us to socialize among our friends and our society. Now, in human beings and lower animals, it also tells about you the impending danger, that by listening to a voice, just you can a sound, you can detect whether there is danger. So if you listen bomb explosion, that it means you are nearby a danger. So you can localize the danger, and you can also localize your friends. So physiology of audition can be discussed under following headings. One is conduction of sound wave, like how they are mechanically conducted. So it is the portion in which, in this portion, we study. And second portion is transduction of the sound waves, that is the mechanical form of the waves, that is the mechanical form of the energy is transduced into or converted into electrical energy. So we will study in this part, that is the transduction of sound waves. The other part is neural transmission of the signals, the electrical signals which are generated or which are converted from the mechanical form, how they are transmitted to the brain. That is, we will study under this heading, that is the neural transmission of the signal. And then final last is encoding of the sound signals which are taken, which takes place in the brain or auditory cortex. Now, what is a sound? If we think what is sound, sound is a stimuli for hearing. Now, or you can say sound is a stimuli for the receptor of hearing, which are present in the organ of corti. Or you can say sound is a form of energy that propagates in the form of waves. Any vibrating object which is set into vibration that produces waves of compression and rarefaction. Now this is how the sound waves travels. Whenever object is set into vibration, it produces the compression in the nearby air molecules, and the adjacent to these molecules are the molecules which are in rarefied form, that is they are placed rather far apart. Now these waves of compression and rarefaction, through these the sound wave travels. Now what is the speed with which they travel? That is, the speed of sound in air is 344 meter per second, and this speed is at the temperature of 20 degrees centigrade in air. And if you want to know the speed that is of sound in air at 0 degrees centigrade, it is 330 meter per second. Sound travels with faster speed in liquids and solids as compared to air. The speed in liquids is faster as compared to air. As I said, it is around 1450 meter seconds to 1500 meter per second at 20 degree centigrade level. Now, regarding sound wave, we should know the different terms. That is, one is amplitude, which tells you about the loudness. Second term is frequency. The similar terms to frequency are pitch and tone. The third term is impedance. Now what is amplitude? Amplitude is strength of the sound. It tells you about the how loud is the sound. So it denotes the appreciation of sound intensity. More is the amplitude, louder will be the sound. So amplitude is expressed in decibel. So our different conversations amplitude is when we are whispering, then the amplitude of the sound is around 30 decibel. When the normal in normal conversation, it is around 60 decibel, and for the rock music which you people listen, this there is the amplitude is of the level of 90 decibel. The amplitude which produces discomfort to the ear is 120 decibel, and pain in the ear is produced by amplitude which is of level of 140 decibel. Now what is frequency? Frequency is the number of cycles per second, that is the waves, number of waves which are produced by the vibrating object per second. So that is called as frequency. Now pitch and tone, they denote the appreciation of the frequency. That is, higher is the pitch when higher is the frequency. When frequency is low, pitch will be low. So the pitch of female voice is high. So we can say in female the sound is produced at a higher frequency. So they have high pitch sounds, and males they have low pitch sounds. Now pitch of average male voice is 120 Hertz, and to that of a female is 250 Hertz. Now an average individual can distinguish about 2000 different pitches. So this is one of the important aspect. And what is tone? Tone is a sound of a different. If we are talking about tone, tone can be pure tone or it can be a complex tone. So pure tone is the sound which have only single frequency, and the sound which is having single frequency is called as pure tone. And complex sounds are the sounds which have more than one frequency. For example, human voice is a complex sound, that is, it consists of more than one frequency sound. So that is about tone. Now impedance is the resistance offered by the medium to the sound wave. In continuation of this is wavelength, wave amplitude, and wave types. Although you have studied these terms in your previous classes, that is your +1 and +2 classes. So this is a vibrating object which is set into vibration. This is a bell which is a hammer is striking with this bell, and this produces this leads to the compression of the molecules which are present in the nearby air. Now the next molecules, they are in rarefied form. Now they will be compressed next, and this is how this sound wave will travel. Now this compression, they produce the crest, and rarefied forms, they produce the trough. Now from this point to this point is called wavelength, or you can say distance covered by the wave from one crest to a trough is called as wavelength, or the distance between the two crests, that is the top of these, this is called as wavelength and represented by lambda. Now this distance is called as amplitude. So this is the amplitude of this wave. Now change in frequency, there are two kinds of wave. One is blue wave, other is red wave. So if you see, these are the number of waves: 1, 2, 3 and 4. There are 4 waves in this much of time period, and this is one wave. So this is the frequency, one wave in this distance, and these are 3 waves in this 3.5 wave is in this distance. So this is the higher frequency sound. This blue one is the higher frequency sound, and so as the frequency is higher, so pitch will be higher in this case. Now this is having low frequency, so this will produce low pitch sound. Now change in intensity, that is intensity is concerned with the amplitude. Now this blue wave is smaller in amplitude and red wave is more in amplitude. So this red wave will be louder and this blue wave will be quieter, because amplitude is more in red wave and amplitude in the blue wave is lesser. So these are the terms which you should know. Now mechanism of hearing, that is an overview. Now sound signals, they are collected by the pinna, and these sound signals, they are transmitted to the external auditory canal, and here you can see these are the sound waves. They are going to the external ear auditory canal. Now this is set up into the vibration, and these through external auditory, it strikes the tympanic membrane. So it is striking against the tympanic membrane, and vibration of the tympanic membrane are transmitted to the foot plate of stapes. So foot plate of stapes, this foot plate of stapes will transmit the force which is generated here in the internal ear. Now movement of foot plate causes pressure changes in the labyrinthine fluid, which are perilymph and endolymph which are present in the internal ear. So perilymph is present in scala vestibuli and scala tympani, whereas the endolymph is present in the scala media. So here the sound signal is going through this scala vestibuli to the top of the cochlea, then it is coming back through scala media. This is the scala media, and this is the this is the scala tympani, and this is the scala vestibuli. It is going through scala vestibuli and coming back through the scala tympani. So during this process, when the sound waves are transmitted by foot plate of stapes into cochlea, they produce the vibration in this perilymph. Now this perilymph, when these vibrations, they move the basilar membrane. When these vibrations, they set this part into vibration, and when it is vibrating, they stimulate the organ of corti, which is here present, and then hair cells acts as transducers, that is the mechanical form of the energy, which is still up to this point. This is converted, this is again mechanical form. This convert the mechanical energy into electrical impulses. These are the hair cells. They are converting the mechanical form of energy into electrical impulses, which travel up along the auditory nerve. Now the impulses are generated, and these impulses are conducted in through these fibers to the auditory nerve. Now transmission of the sound waves in the inner ear. Now how these are transmitted? This is the part of the ear. This is the schematic diagram. This is the external ear, this is the middle ear, and this is the internal ear. Now if you see, pinna collects the sound waves and reflects the sound waves into the external auditory meatus, and which is S-shaped. It also provides some amplification to the sound waves, and it also prevents the mechanical injury to the tympanic membrane, and it also helps in maintaining the favorable temperature of the tympanic membrane and normal humidity of the tympanic membrane. Now there is not much amplification of the sound takes place in the external ear. Now this tympanic membrane is set into vibration. Now these vibrations are converted into higher amplitude and less and greater force by these malleus incus and stapes ossicles, and then these you can see sound is amplified, and this amplified sound goes in the internal ear through oval window by the movement of the foot plate of stapes, and they are then converted. The mechanical form of the energy, they are converted in the internal ear, and again the amplitude has gone lesser, and then they are converted into electrical signals by the hair cells. Now mechanism of hearing can be divided into mechanical conduction of sound. I told you earlier, that is the sound waves, how these are conducted from external ear to middle ear to internal ear. Now transduction of the mechanical energy to electrical impulses, which takes place in the sensory organ of corti, that is which is hair cells, which are responsible for the transduction of mechanical energy to electrical impulses. Then conduction of impulses to brain, that is the neural pathway. This is the neural transmission. The final is the encoding of signals. We will learn these steps, all these mechanism step by step. Now mechanical conduction of the sound. Now how this sound is mechanically conducted to the internal ear. As I said, that pinna reflects the sound waves into the external auditory meatus, and the tympanic membrane is set into vibration. But what if person is submerged underwater and a person who is standing outside the water, if his voice is louder, then this person submerged underwater can listen to the voice of this man? The answer is no, because a person underwater cannot hear and sound made in the air, because 99% of the energy is lost as it is reflected away. The sound waves, they are reflected by the water. These are the two different media. Water is a different denser media and air is rarefied media. So whatever may be the intensity of sounds, that is 99.9% of the energy is reflected by the denser media to back to air. So this person cannot listen to the voice of this person. Now similar situation exists in the ear. You have seen that internal ear is filled with fluids, and whereas air is present in the middle ear as well as in the external ear. Now similar situation exists, so there is impedance mismatch. Now we have to nature has made a very beautiful mechanism to compensate this impedance mismatch. As the sound waves has to travel to the cochlear fluid, so there is impedance mismatch. Now this nature, how it is has compensated this impedance mismatch, it has provided middle ear with ossicles, which are very important for the conduction of sound from middle ear to internal ear. If these ossicles are not present, a person cannot, if these are absent, a person cannot listen or to the voice of other person. So these middle ear ossicles are very important. So this middle ear converts the sound of great amplitude but lesser force to lesser amplitude but greater force. So the sound waves which are initially in greater amplitude and lesser force, they are converted into lesser amplitude and greater force by the middle ear. Now how it is done? This impedance matching is done by ossicular chain, as I'm telling you a few seconds back. So one the mechanism responsible is lever. There are two actions. One is lever action of ossicles, other is hydraulic action of the tympanic membrane. Now what is lever action of ossicles? Handle of Malleus, this is the handle of Malleus. It is 1.3 times longer than the long process of Incus. So it provides a mechanical advantage of 1.3 times. Now due to this, we have advantage of lever action, which is greater 1.3 times. Now what is hydraulic action of tympanic membrane? If you see surface of area of tympanic membrane, this is the surface area of tympanic membrane, it is 55 square millimeter. And if you compare it with the surface area of foot plate of stapes, that is, here is the foot plate of stapes, it is 3.2 square millimeter. Now this area is approximately 17 times less than the area of the tympanic membrane. So whatever force is produced here is on a larger surface, that is dissipated on this larger surface. But when this force is dissipated on a small surface, it is converted into a greater force because of this difference, 17-fold difference. So it is the force which is produced or distributed here on the larger area is again, it is concentrated on this much of, that is 3.2 millimeter area. So together this action and this hydraulic action of tympanic membrane, they give a 22 times as much as total force which is to be exerted on the fluid of the cochlea, which is beryllium, as is exerted by the sound waves against the tympanic membrane. So these are very important. So this force, when transmitted through foot plate of stapes, it sets the fluid, which is beryllium, into vibration. If these are absent, it would not be possible to set this fluid inside the scala vestibuli into vibration. Now what next step is important in this mechanism is attenuation of the sounds. That is decrease in sound. So it is this is performed by two muscles. We have discussed in the anatomy also. This is by the two muscles. One is tensor tympani, which is present in the anterior wall of the middle ear, and stapedius muscle, which is present in the posterior wall of the middle ear. Now when a loud sounds are transmitted, an attenuation reflex occurs after a latent period of only 40 to 80 milliseconds. So when a loud sound strikes against the tympanic membrane, this tympanic membrane is set into vibration. When it is set into vibration, at the same time the stapedius muscle, which is present in the anterior wall, it goes under contraction. So when this tensor tympani muscle, when it undergoes contraction, what happens? It pulls the this handle of malleus towards the foot plate of stapes, and when this stapedius muscle undergo contraction, it pulls the foot plate of stapes out of the oval window. So these ossicular chain that gets stiffened. So as a result, sound is attenuated. So our cochlea, that is the internal organ of hearing, internal ear, is prevented from the damage. So this is very important. So there is a great reduction in the conduction of low frequency sound, mainly below 1000 cycles per second. Now this attenuation reflex can reduce intensity of lower frequency sound transmission by 30 to 40 decibels, which is about the same difference as that of between a loud voice and a whisper. So there is a difference of this frequency of sound or level of sound is 30 to 40 decibels in between voice and whisper. So this is achieved by the attenuation reflex. So why attenuation is needed? Whenever you speak, what happens? Your voice do not appears loud to you. So this is all because of attenuation reflex. Whenever we are talking or chewing, the movements which are producing sounds, they will set this tensor tympani and stapedius muscle, and they undergo contraction, and so that we do not listen to the voice which are the sounds which are produced during chewing, and when we are talking, our voice do not appear as too loud. The other function is they protect the cochlea from damaging. So cochlea is prevented from the damage. Now to mask low frequency sound in loud environment, masking usually removes a major share of background noise and allows a person to concentrate on sound above 1000 cycles per second. So the sounds which are lesser than this frequency, they are masked because of this attenuation reflex. So this is the frequency which is most in which most of the pertinent information in voice communication is transmitted. So when I told you this attenuation reflex, there is a latent period of 40 to 80 milliseconds. So when any sound which is quick in production, that is a bomb explosion, which is very produces immense sound that can damage your organ of hearing, internal ear, because it the sound produced is very quick, quicker than the attenuation reflex. Before this attenuation reflex is come into play, it damages the your internal ear. So gunshot and such kind of bomb explosion, they can lead to damage of the internal ear, as they are produced very quickly, and latent period is 40 to 80 milliseconds. So they can damage your internal ear. Now natural resonance of the external and middle ear. So natural resonance for the external auditory canal is 3000 hertz, and in case of tympanic membrane there is a range which is in between 800 to 1600 hertz, and in middle ear the range is 800 hertz, and for ossicular chain the natural resonance is 500 to 2000 hertz. So this allows certain frequency of sound to pass more easily to inner ear due to their natural resonance. Although we can hear to voice in the frequency range of 20 to 20,000 hertz, but due to this natural resonance of external and middle ear, we have greatest sensitivity of the sound transmission in between 500 to 3000 hertz, and these are the frequencies which are most important to man in day-to-day conversation. Now, transduction of mechanical energy into electrical impulse. Now this important work of transduction of a mechanical form of sound waves is performed by organ of Corti, which converts the mechanical form of the sound wave into electrical impulses. I have taken in anatomy this slide earlier, and this is the cochlea, this is the cut section of the cochlea, this is the basal turn, this is the middle turn, and this is the upper 3/4 turn. You can see in all the cut sections this is the scala vestibuli, scala tympani, and this is scala media, and up to in all section you can see that these are present, and this is the basilar membrane, this is the modulus, and but in the topmost portion of the cochlea there is no scala media, so this portion is known as helicotrema. So here that is this scala vestibuli and scala tympani, they are filled with a fluid, that is the labyrinthine fluid known by the name of perilymph, which is very much similar to the extracellular fluid in composition, and the scala media, it is filled with endolymph. It is very much similar to the intracellular fluid, as it contains much of potassium and it is less in potassium. So there is similarity of these fluids with intracellular and extracellular fluid. The point to remember is that at the top end of the cochlea there is no scala media. Now this is the basilar membrane, this is the Reissner membrane, this is the enlarged view of this, and this is the organ of Corti which is resting upon this basilar membrane, and the fibers which are coming from all the hair cell here from this point, they make up the cochlear branch of vestibulocochlear nerve. Now the enlarged portion of this organ Corti is shown in this diagram. This is the tunnel of Corti, these are the pillar cells. This tunnel of Corti is filled with cortilymph, and the function of which is not known, and this is the tectorial membrane, and these are the hair cells, these are the inner hair cells, these are the outer hair cells. These are present in single row throughout this membrane above this in the organ of Corti on the basilar membrane, and these are present in the 3 to 4 rows. These are the outer hair cells. Now these are the supporting cells, outer supporting cells, and outer phalangeal cells are known by the name of Dieter cell, and these are the Hansen cells, and these are the Claudia cells. They provide support to these hair cells and these outer phalangeal cells, and these are the inner phalangeal cells which are supporting the inner hair cells. Now this is the tectorial membrane. You can see the hairs which are coming, or stereocilia which are coming from the hair cell. They are embedded in this tectorial membrane, and then this is the limbus, and the attachment of the tectorial membrane is different, and attachment of the basilar membrane is different. So you can say this is the attachment of the tectorial membrane. This attachment, different attachment is very important for transduction of sound mechanical form of sound waves into electrical sound forms. So Internal hair cells, these are 3000 in numbers and they measure 12 micrometer in diameter, whereas external hair cells, they are 12,000 in numbers and 8 micrometer in diameter. The bases and sides of hair cells synapse with network of cochlear nerve endings. So these are the base, the fibers which are coming, they synapse with the cochlear nerve endings. Now 90 to 95% of the nerve endings, they terminate on the inner hair cells. So these nerve endings, they terminate on the inner hair cells. So these inner hair cells are present towards this side. So there are many hair cells, so they get 90 to 95 innervation of the nerve endings. Now the nerve fibers stimulated by the hair cells lead to spiral ganglion of corti, and which lies in the modulus. So this spiral ganglion lies in the modulus, and a spiral ganglion sends axon to neurons about 30,000 into cochlear nerve. So this is again important to understand how this signal is converted into electrical impulse. Now to understand the internal ear, we should understand the movement of fluid in cochlea. The fluid which is present inside the cochlea are of two kinds, that is perilymph and endolymph. Perilymph is present in the scala vestibuli and scala tympani. Now scala vestibuli is communicating with the scala tympani at the top end of the cochlea. So this is considered as a single chamber. Now ossicular chain when moves, it sets the foot plate of stapes into vibration, and it moves inwards and outwards of the outward in the oval window. Now this foot plate of stapes is attached to the oval window through a ligament which is known by the name of annular ligament. Because of this ligament, it can move inward and outward with sound vibration. So whatever the force is produced here is transferred to the perilymph effectively, and these movements, they make the perilymph which is present in the scala vestibuli, it is producing waves inside the, or ripples inside the perilymph of the scala vestibuli. Now Reissner membrane is missing, it appears as missing. We are saying that is missing, actually it is not missing, but it is very thin, and it do not hinders the movement of the perilymph. So it do not cause any kind of obstruction, and waves are passed to the basilar membrane easily. So sound vibration, they are passed from the scala vestibuli to the scala media through basilar membrane. So when the waves, they pass from the scala vestibuli to the scala tympani, this basilar membrane, it is set into vibration. Now as far as the fluid conduction, I told you this is scala vestibuli and scala tympani, they are considered as a single chamber, and scala media is a different chamber. Now transmission of sound waves in cochlea, that is the traveling waves. When foot plate of stapes moves inwards, when it is moving inwards, the round window must bulge outwards. Because the cochlea is bounded on all sides by the bony walls. So it is very important also, if this mechanism is not there, we cannot listen to any kind of voice. Suppose if it is going inwards and this round window is also going inwards, then it will lead to cancellation of waves. So whenever it goes inward, it comes outwards. So this is very important. So they both are in different phases. One is compression, other is rarefaction. Now initially sound waves, they causes basilar membrane to bend in the direction of round window. Now the sound waves, what happens, you can see here, when the foot plates goes inwards, this basilar membrane, it moves in the direction of a round window. then it again come and then this leads to the this basilar membrane is set into vibration because of this, because when this foot plate of stapes is pushing the fluid inwards, the waves are set in, or there are ripples produced in the perilymph, and these ripples they pushes the basilar membrane towards the round window. Then basilar fibers they develop elastic tension and they bend towards the round window, and it initiates a fluid wave that travels along the basilar membrane towards the helicotrema. Now a wave is generated. Now when this is goes down, then it will come back to its original portion. Because of this mechanical energy, this has moved toward the round window, then it will again come back because of its elasticity, then a wave is set in. So this is how this wave will travel along this basilar membrane. So depending upon the frequency of the sound or loudness of the sound, the part of the basilar membrane is stimulated. The high frequency sound they stimulate or they make the most movements in this part of that is the basal part of the cochlear region, and the medium frequency waves they move the central part of the basilar membrane, they set this part into vibration, whereas the low frequency sound waves they move the farthest end of the basilar membrane. So this is because of if you want to understand, that is the basilar membrane is stiff and narrow at this end, so greater force is required to move this part of the basilar membrane. So high frequency waves only they can produce movements in this part of the basilar membrane, whereas the medium frequency waves they can move this part, as the stiffness of the basilar membrane that goes on decreasing through the as the distance from the windows increases, its stiffness decreases. So it is flexible, most flexible at this end. That is why the low frequency sound they can make this portion of the basilar membrane into vibration. So if you want to understand this frequency based oscillation of this basilar membrane, so this is the scala vestibuli. When the fluid it is set into vibration, it puts this basilar membrane into vibration. Suppose this is the closer end of this end is closer to the oval window, that is the foot plate, and this end is close, this end is the round window, and then this is the length of the basilar membrane. Now this portion is sensitive to the this much of portion is sensitive to the high frequency sound, and this portion which is at the farther end is sensitive to the medium frequency, and the farthest portion which is present around the cochlea, the farthest portion which is near the helicotrema, that is the sensitive to the low frequency sound. So this part is the stiffer one, and then this stiffness it decreases as the length of this basilar membrane goes far away from the round window and the oval window. So I have taken this slide in my previous slide, but still if you want to repeat it, then I can repeat it for you. That is different sound frequencies, that is the high frequency, medium frequency and low frequency, they has different pattern of vibration of the basilar membrane. Each wave is weak at the outset. When the wave is set, it is weak but becomes strong when it reaches the portion of the basilar membrane that has natural resonant frequency equal to the respective sound frequency. So when this frequency matches with the portion of the basilar membrane where it is most sensitive, like high frequency is most sensitive to the near end of this oval window and round window, then uh, when they matches their in this the movements are produced in this part of the basilar membrane. So at this point, basilar membrane will vibrate back and forth. It vibrates back and forth, which will dissipate the energy to the wave, and wave dies. When it vibrates back and forth, and the energy is dissipated, and the sound wave dies. So it do not travels much. So this high frequency sound dies only here. It do not travel along this portion of the basilar membrane. So the high frequency waves, that is that they travel short distance along the basilar membrane before it resonant point and dies. So it dies very soon. It dies, as I told you, this portion is very stiff and narrow, so greater energy is required to resonate this much of portion. So it dies very soon, and the sounds which are of high frequency, they stimulate the hair cells which are present in this portion of the basilar membrane, whereas the medium frequency sounds, they travel about halfway and then die. So they travel about halfway, after that they die. They do not travel from this point to the farthest end of the basilar membrane. Now the low frequency sounds, they travel the entire distance along the membrane. As these low frequency sounds, the energy produced by the low frequency sound is not enough to set this part of basilar membrane into vibration. They cannot make the movement of the basilar membrane in back and forth direction. So they when they reaches at the farthest end, they make the movements in this the farthest end the basilar membrane, which is nearby the helicotrema, that is the last turn of the cochlea. And so the low frequency sounds, they stimulate the farthest ends, so we are able to hear because the hair cells which are present in this area, they get stimulated by the low frequency sound. Why it is so? Because this basilar membrane is fragile, or you can say it is very sensitive. It can move easily. It is not stiff. The stiffness goes with the length of the basilar membrane. Now coming on to the excitation of the hair cells. Now we have studied that stereocilia, they are present at the top end of the hair cells. They project upwards from the hair cell and are embedded in the tectorial membrane, as we have seen in the structure of the organ of Corti. Now bending of hairs in one direction depolarizes them, and bending in opposite direction hyperpolarizes the hair cells. Now this in turn excites the auditory nerve fibers synapsing with their bases. So excitation of hair cells, they lead to the they further excites the auditory nerve fibers which are synapsing with their bases of the hair cells, which we have seen already in the diagram. Now this is the structure of the hair cells, and these are the receptor which receive the stimuli of the sound, the waves which in the form of ripples which are produced in the perilymph of the scala vestibuli. As I told you, they make the basilar membrane, they set that into movement. So before studying how they are converting the signals into electrical signals, we should understand the structure of hair cells. So this is the hair cells. The inner hair cells, they are flask shaped, and the outer hair cells, they are cylindrical in shape. Now each hair cell has about 100 cilia present on it. So number of these cilia on the hair cells, they are around 100 cells, and these cells, these stereocilia, they are embedded in the tectorial membrane. Now these stereocilia become progressively longer on the side of hair cell away from the modulus. Now the cells which are present away from the modulus, the stereocilia, they become progressively longer. These are progressively longer towards the when the hair cell goes away from the modulus. Now top side of the shorter cilia are attached by the thin filaments to back sides of the adjacent longer cilia. Now these are the tipplings which are these hair cells, they are interconnected with each other. So in this line I'm talking about these connection in between the stereocilia. So whenever the cilia are bent in direction of the longer ones, so when they're moving in the direction of the longer ones, the tip of smaller cilia are tugged outwards. This gets tugged outwards and from the surface of hair cells. Now this causes mechanical transduction of causing opening of 200 to 300 cation conducting channels, which are in this case potassium channels. Now they allow the rapid movement of potassium ions from the endolymph into the stereocilia, which causes depolarization of the membrane. Now as I told you that endolymph is rich in potassium, so when they bend in this direction, potassium from the endolymph they start moving from the endolymph to the inside the hair cell. Now depolarized, and this leads to depolarization. Now when this cells gets depolarized, what happens? The calcium which is present, the voltage gated this leads to depolarized membrane, causes opening of the voltage gated calcium channel. These are the voltage gated calcium channel. The calciums also start moving inside. When calcium moves inside, you know that whenever there is inside movement of the calcium inside the cell, it leads to fusion of the vesicles at the synaptic level. So when the calcium moves, these vesicles they fuse with the membrane and the neurotransmitter that goes outside, and it leads to the excitation of the bipolar neurons which are present in the spiral ganglion. When the cell is at rest, that is the hair cell is at rest, there are two types of potential. One is endocochlear potential, other is its own resting membrane potential. So before understanding endocochlear potential, as you know, endolymph is secreted by striovascular layer of vascularis layer of the scala media. So endolymph, it is highly rich in the concentration of potassium ions and low concentration of the sodium ions. So it resembles the intracellular fluid. Whereas the perilymph, it is present the scala vestibuli and scala tympani, and they communicate directly with subarachnoid space, and they also communicate with each other at helicotrema. So it is almost identical to the cerebrospinal fluid and opposite to that of the endolymph. So it can be compared with extracellular fluid, and this can be compared with intracellular fluid, as it is rich in potassium and it is not rich in potassium. Now electrical potential of plus 80 millivolt exists all the time between endolymph and the perilymph. So there is a electrical potential difference of 80 millivolt between endolymph and the perilymph, and this electrical potential difference is known by the name of endocochlear potential. Now endocochlear potential is generated by continuous secretion of potassium into scala media by stria vascularis. So stria vascularis is responsible for this endocochlear potential. Now if we talk about the resting membrane potential of the hair cell, that is minus 70 millivolt. But the upper end of this hair cell that baths in the endolymph, and the lower part of the hair cell that baths in the perilymph. So with respect to endolymph, the potential difference is minus 70 is that of its own resting membrane potential, and if we add plus 80 millivolt, that is so total there is because 80 millivolt is the potential difference between the endolymph and perilymph, so there is a net difference of minus 150 millivolt when in the upper end of hair cell and the outer portion of the which baths in the endolymph, there is minus 150 millivolt of difference, but at the lower end it is around minus 70 millivolt. So that is the resting membrane potential of the hair cell. Now why it is important? The top of hair cells, they project through reticular lamina and are bathed by the endolymph. So perilymph bathes the lower bodies of the hair cell, as I told in my previous slide, and the hair cells, they have negative intracellular potential of minus 70 millivolt with respect to perilymph, but minus 150 millivolt with respect to endolymph at the upper surface, because minus 70 is the potential inside the cell at the top end, and plus 80 is the uh, difference in the endolymph. So from minus 70 to 80 there is a difference of minus 150 millivolt, but at the basal end it is minus 70 millivolt, that is with respect to the perilymph. Now this high electrical potential at the tips of stereocilia sensitizes the cell to an extra amount, thereby increasing its ability to respond to the slightest sound. So even a slightest sound which is because of this much of potential difference, they are very sensitive to slightest sound, so they gets depolarized, and there is when they gets depolarized, there is entry of the calcium, and there is fusion of the different neurotransmitter vesicle, and the transmission of the occurs. So this is the these are the different GFs. In the first diagram you can see this is, there is low potassium, there was high potassium in this portion. What happens when these stereocilia moves? What happens? Potassium entry occurs, that is the potassium ion from the endolymph to the inside the cell, they moves. So as a result, what happens when potassium ions come inside, there is depolarization of the membrane of the hair cell. When it gets depolarized, it leads to the opening of these calcium channels. When calcium channel entry takes place, there will be fusion of these neurotransmitter vesicle with the membrane, and this neurotransmitter will be released in the synapse, and that will lead to conduction of the sound waves. Now when they are conducted, so there will be, again this is the another diagram. I have talked about this diagram many times, so I think there is not much need to explain. There is transmission of the sound impulsive by the organ of corti. So there are the different movements because of the attachment of tectorial membrane to the different side, and the basilar membrane to the different side. So there is a shear force in between these two membranes, and they lead to the bending of the cilia and movement of the cations inside the cells, and thereby depolarization and leading to the impulse generation. Now determination of frequency and the place and Wally principle. I have talked about the place theory in my previous slides. That is the high frequency sound that is sensitive to the basal region of the basilar membrane, and the high frequency medium frequency sounds, they are sensitive, they produce vibration in the medial portion of the central portion of the basilar membrane, and the low frequency sounds, they they set the basilar membrane into vibration, the farthest portion of the basilar membrane. So according to the frequency, they lead to the different stimulation, or of they set the basilar membrane into different vibrations. So we can determine the different frequency sounds, like you can listen to by listening to sound of Lata Mangeshkar or any female singer, you can identify that a particular set of hair cells on the basilar membrane, they are the group of hair cells, they are excited, and when they are excited, you are able to identify the voice of that singer. So depending, because that singer's voice, they stimulate or set hair cells, and because of that you are able to identify the sound of that singer. Now frequencies lower than 200 cycles per second are discriminated mainly by the Wally or frequency principle. Now the low frequency sounds from 20 to 1500 to 2000 cycles per second can cause volley of nerve impulses synchronized at the same frequencies, and these volleys are transmitted by the cochlear nerve into cochlear nuclei of the brain. Now, amplitude pattern of the vibration of basilar membrane for a medium frequency sound. So this is the distance from stapes in millimeters, that is 0, 5, 10. This is the distance of the if this is the basilar membrane, this is the part from the these are the distance from the foot plate of stapes, that is 5 millimeter, 10 millimeter, 15, and up to here 35 millimeter. So you can see the frequency of 200 hertz. They will stimulate this part of the basilar membrane, whereas the higher frequency sound, they stimulate the portion of the basilar membrane which is nearer to the foot plate of stapes. So again, this is depicted in this diagram. So amplitude patterns for sounds of frequencies between 200 to 8000 cycles per second, showing the point of maximum amplitude on the basilar membrane for the different frequencies, are shown in this diagram. So 200 to 8000 hertz, this is shown in this diagram. Now, determination of loudness. Now, loudness is determined by three ways. Now, as the sound becomes louder, the amplitude of vibration of basilar membrane and hair cells also increases, so that the hair cells excite the nerve ending at the more rapid rates. Next is amplitude of vibration increases. It causes more and more of the hair cells on the fringes of the resonating portion of the basilar membrane to become stimulated, causing spatial summation of impulses, so transmission through many nerve fibers. The outer hair cells, they do not become stimulated significantly until vibration of the basilar membrane reaches high intensity. So the vibration of the basilar membrane reaches high intensity, the outer hair cells, they are not usually stimulated, and stimulation of these cells presumably apprises the nervous system that the sound is loud. So whenever these hair cells are stimulated, they tell that the sound is loud. Now, coming on to the auditory pathway, we have discussed in anatomical part, that is the first order neuron, they are present in the spiral ganglion, which are the bipolar cells, and they carry impulses to the dorsal and ventral cochlear nucleus, where second order neuron are present. From there, they go to the superior alveolar nucleus, then trapezoid body, and nucleus of lateral lemniscus. Some of the neurons from here, they relay in the, that is the superior alveolar nucleus. Some of the neurons, they go at the nucleus of lateral lemniscus, and some of they relay in the trapezoid body. So these from their third order, from all of these three structures, that is this one, superior alveolar nucleus, trapezoid body, and nucleus of lateral lemniscus, there are the third order neuron, they are present. From there, inferior colliculus, the neurons, they transmit these impulses to the inferior colliculus. Here the fourth order neuron are present, and they communicate with the medial geniculate body, and from there impulses, they go to the auditory cortex, and here the fifth order neuron are present, and these auditory sounds, they are picked up by the auditory cortex, and they are encoded here in the our auditory cortex, that is the area 22, Brodmann's area 44, 42, which leads to the encoding of the sounds. Now you can see there is crossing of the fibers from at the level of medulla, and so it means there is bilateral representation of the sound when I am talking. So there some of the fibers, they are going ipsilaterally, and some of the sounds, they are going contralaterally. So because there is crossing of the fibers once again, so whenever there is a loss, so here, so there is partial sensory loss. The sound is mainly perceived by this ear, but suppose it is if there is lesion of these pathway here, then person will be able to listen those sounds, but he can listen partially, thus there will not be complete loss of hearing. So there is bilateral representation of the sound in this auditory pathway. Now, important points are signals from both ears are transmitted to both sides of the brain with the preponderance to contralateral pathway. I have taken this. Crossing over occurs at 3 levels: trapezoid body, commissure between the 2 nuclei of the lateral lemnisci, and commissure connecting 2 inferior colliculi. Now, many collateral fibers pass directly into the reticular activating system of the brainstem. So when these are very important. When you are asleep, when you are in deep sleep, and we try to woke you, someone tries to woke you up, then you immediately woke up. So because these fibers, they are giving collateral to the reticular activating system, and this system is important for the arousal mechanism. So that is why if somebody calls you, you get woke up. So high degree of spatial organization in the fiber tracts from cochlea to cerebral cortex is also there. So this is the part of mechanism of hearing. So I hope you understood it well. So the important topics in this is endocochlear potential. You may get a short note on this, and the auditory pathway is very important. Organ of Corti is very important. You can get a question on this one, and you can get a question on Wallis principle or place theory. Impedance mismatch matching is important question. Attenuation reflex is also an important question. So you may go through your books. For this preparation of my lecture, I have consulted books. That is, one is your Guyton, basic is Guyton, and I have consulted also Indu Khurana textbook of physiology. So you can go through that book also, and you can listen to this lecture also, and go through your books so that you get the absolute knowledge. I may be wrong, but books are never wrong. So I have tried to make simplify the things for you. So read your books thoroughly. Good luck. In my next lecture, I will be taking applied part of the hearing. So thank you very much.